Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center, and this is a show dedicated to helping owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses thrive in their businesses and offer quality accounting services and get paid what they're worth. Each and every week we have on the show guests, experts in their own right as to helping us actually focus on the things that matter as we're working in our business, and today's going to be an excellent example of that. This is someone I've been looking forward to speaking with for some time now, simply because Jeremy Clopton happens to be someone that works exclusively with business owners, accounting firm owners, as he advises them with Upstream Academy. He specializes in developing future leaders through Emerging Leader Academy, a 3-year program focused on the next generation of accounting firm partners. So Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Roger, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So you've got a little bit of an interesting background. Obviously in accounting, you were working in fraud. Tell us a little bit of your background, how you got into accounting and how that evolved into where you are today. Just a quick, brief introduction.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to become an accountant when I was in 6th grade, actually. I remember distinctly way back in the day, I had a couple uncles that were CPAs, and one of them happened to be working on murder trials at the time. And I thought, what an awesome career that could be. So decided I wanted to be an accountant at an early age, really focused on forensic accounting, went to college specifically, told my advisor day one, hey, let's just jump right in. Let's get into the curriculum, become an accountant, get into the workforce as quickly as I can. Started my career with a national firm and was there for 12 years, almost exclusively on the forensic side.
Wow.
Dabbled in a little bit of audit at the start because that is what you do when you start in public accounting, is typically either audit or tax.
Yep.
And I got a little bit of experience in audit, but interned in forensics, jumped right into forensics after a few months and really never looked back. And I always thought I would be a testifying expert. For whatever reason, that was exciting to me. And I realized that's not necessarily a normal thing to be excited by. But I thought, hey, that's going to be a lot of fun. But then I fell in love with technology, and data analytics became my passion, kind of pivoted and really focused on how do you use technology to better find and prevent fraud. Did that for 12 years, helped to launch and lead an analytics and big data practice at the firm, helped to lead the digital forensics practice, and then decided, you know what? I think I'm going to teach. Teaching, speaking is a passion of mine. I was already speaking probably 40 or 50 times a year as it was at conferences and webinars. Thought, if I could turn this into a career, man, that'd be a lot of fun. So I decided to follow my passion and spoke for a couple years internationally, teaching in the anti-fraud space and working with companies around the U.S. and really realized, I really like working with accountants. I don't necessarily miss accounting, but I do miss working with accountants and accounting firms. So I found my way back to Upstream. I'd actually graduated from our Emerging Leaders Academy when I was in public accounting, and happened to reach back out to the partners here and said, hey, if you guys ever need a speaker, I'd love to be able to work with you some. And they said, well, that'd be great. We'd love to have you speak. And would you like to become a partner and be part of our succession plan? So it's been about 5.5 years, a little over 5.5 years since that happened. We've retired both of our partners. In fact, our founder just retired the end of last year. And
Nice.
I stepped into the managing director role of the firm. And now I get to work with accounting firms across the US and Canada exclusively and helping them, go from successful to even more successful, which is a ridiculously fulfilling career.
I have to agree. Love it. They're a great group of people and it's very fulfilling. So let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial bug, because you had that for a little bit. What caused you to go out on your own and what was that like?
It was really a desire to take a little bit more control and do what I really just found passion and joy in doing. And I was speaking a fair amount, but speaking when you're in public accounting is a little bit different, right? There's always kind of a marketing reason behind it, maybe an education or business development reason behind it. I wanted to just do that full time. I just really love teaching. I really love speaking. And as any really, good accountant would, I ran the numbers first. I had the entrepreneurial bug for quite a while, but I had to get to where the numbers worked. Right.
Yep.
I ran the spreadsheet, ran the projections. They all turned into black numbers instead of red numbers. And I thought, okay, this is the time to do it. And it was so fun. It was a hard transition the first few months because I was still kind of in that habit of being at a really big firm and realized, well, now all the resources are in this room and they're me, myself, and I. So that was a little bit of a transition, but I tell you what, Roger, once I got the entrepreneurial bug, it's never gone. And that's what I love about being at Upstream is when I joined, it wasn't, hey, let's just keep doing what we're doing and just plug you into it. But what do you want to create? What do you want to bring to the profession? And I was able to, come in and create a workshop that helps other accounting firms launch analytics services or analytics practices. And I've had the privilege of working with over 100 firms now on how to do that, whether it's internal facing, external facing, and really that entrepreneurial bug it's just kept going. And it's so fun to create. I don't know about you, but to me, that is so enjoyable just to
Oh,
figure out,
yes.
hey, what do people need that doesn't exist and how do we make it happen?
Yeah, what you're doing is you're able to see things differently than some, where you're able to identify a problem and create the solution, address the need. And that's
Yeah.
that creativity space that you were talking about. And the one thing about the entrepreneurial spirit that I really think kind of graduates into all the areas of business and for life for that matter happens to be this idea of if it has to be, it's up to me. You just get things done, you make it happen, and that's that
Yeah.
can do attitude that the entrepreneurial spirit brings to the table. And whatever facet of life you find yourself in, you become that desirable, dependable individual that you can actually lean on. So yeah, I love working with entrepreneurs. They're a lot of fun. So let's talk about your current role as managing director. You're obviously working with firms, and one of the things that strikes me is there's a lot of talk right now about the number of hours that it is taking for people to work in the firm. Managing or partners. The pathway to partnership consists of a lot of long days, long weeks. How do we address that as a profession to actually say that this is a profession that we can do that doesn't require so many hours a week and so much sacrifice?
One of the things that we've got to figure out is the recognition that we don't make money based on hours. Right? We used to 30, 40, 50 years ago. That was how most of the accounting firm business models truly ran, right? It was a pay for the hour type of service. I
Mhm.
genuinely believe that is not how firms run today. And I've debated that with numerous managing partners and partners is hours are not our inventory. I used to hear that phrase a ton and it always drove me crazy because I thought if our hours are our inventory, we can only hit so much, right? Our revenue is capped based on the number of hours we're willing to work. And especially right now, we're at a point where everyone, not just the youngest generations, everyone has come to the realization we don't want to work that much. Right? We
Yeah.
talk about it as the young people that don't want to work 80 hours a week. Let's be honest, I don't know a lot of 50, 60, 70-year-olds that want to work 80 hours a week either. They do it because they're used to it. They don't want to. There's a big difference there. Right?
Yeah.
We mistake that, but we've got to abandon the business model that time is what the value is in. Our value that we provide clients, it's in our knowledge, it's in our expertise, it's in our experience, it's in the outcomes that we help them achieve. If we can make that shift first, we can start to change things. And that's hard with entrepreneurs because, like you said, you rely on themselves, right? And it's that hustle culture mentality.
Hmm.
It's figuring out, okay, well, how do I make more while working less? And that's a challenge.
It is. Well, it's a paradigm shift for the business owners. When you look at the firm, they're having to say, okay, the business model we have isn't
Yeah.
something we can consistently move forward with. We have to abruptly change the business model. And that's where we're going to see changes in pricing, changes in our internal culture. There's a lot of kind of ripple effects that come from this business model and changing it. So when you're abandoning the 80-hour work week, when you're changing the path to partnership, when you're changing client relationships and your billing strategy, where do you begin?
It's the mindset first and foremost. It's you've got to get partners and leaders within the firm, they've got to accept that a new way is okay. Before you can get anybody to change anything, you've got to get people to, it's really this idea that this is completely different from anything we've ever done, and that's okay. If you can get people to at least add that little statement onto the end,
Yeah.
and that's okay, now you have a chance to be successful. But if people are starting from the mindset of this is different than what we've always done, and that's not okay, it doesn't matter where you start because it's not going to work. So it really
Yeah.
is that mindset shift that we don't have to do it the way that we've always done it. Yes, it's been successful. Yes, it got you to where you are. No, it's not going to be what gets you to where you want to be. And the other mindset that's so important is we've got to stop devaluing ourselves. There's a managing partner I work with in Tennessee, and I love what he says. He says, this is a prestigious profession.
Yes.
There is prestige of being in an accounting firm, being a CPA. Why on earth would we want to devalue that? And that is a mindset shift, because I joke sometimes, I don't know if you see this, Roger, but we're one of the few professions I know that will get a client to agree to pay $4,000, put $5,000 in the whip, and then proactively ask the client if they'd be willing to pay $3,000. It's like they've already said it's worth $4,000, but we want them to pay $3,000 because we took too long and we feel bad about it. We've got to get past that mindset shift of we're not worth what we should be worth, right? We're devaluing ourselves. I don't know if you see that with the firms that you work with. It's subtle, but it's there, I feel like.
Well, the way I see it is, and I'm going to try and put this in the most simplest of terms, the firms, they are in a position where they put value on time, therefore they're pricing based on time. And when they start to see, okay, how do we now invoice our clients for something other than time, they don't know where to put the value. They don't know what is the thing that is of worth. And so that actually brings me to my next question. When you're working with firm owners, rather than being reactionary to their firm's staff and those people who are saying they would like to work less and have a quality of life, we need to have them lead. But the challenge I find most of them dealing with is the KPI, the key metric that they're watching is billable hours. What is the metric they replace billable hours with? What do they take their focus and put it on when you're no longer saying billable hours are the priority?
In my view, it's got to be work out the door is probably the easiest shift. Did you get the work done, and did you get it done on time? It's interesting to me that as a profession, we understand that productivity, if you're talking with a manufacturing company or pretty well any industry, if you're talking to a client and they ask you, how do we measure productivity? You talk about outputs. But when we talk about productivity as a profession, we say it's inputs, because that's all a billable hour is. It's an input. And your billable hour probably isn't the same quality as my billable hour. There are certain things you're going to get way more done in an hour than I will. And there's probably things I could get way more done in an hour than you will. Those aren't created equal. That's not productivity. That's just an input. Right? You would never tell a manufacturing company, well, machine hours, that's your productivity. No, it's what came off the assembly line. And look, I don't want us ever thinking about what we do as an assembly line, because it's not that. But we've got to start to figure out, okay, what do clients care about? Because in my mind, that's a better KPI. Did we get the work done on time when we promised it to a client? Yes or no? Okay. Yeah. Then from there, that's the simplest form. You could go, did we get it done at least a week before the deadline? And I realize for some coming out of tax season, they're going, Jeremy, let's talk real terms. That's okay. How about a day before the deadline? Maybe it wasn't on April 15th. It was actually the 14th that went out this year. For some firms, though, then it's a week. Did we get it to where we had even less in the last 2 weeks? Right? We start to redefine what productivity is, because I have never talked to an accounting firm owner where, if you really get down to it, that they actually cared about the amount of hours people worked. Because when they say, well, they didn't work enough. Well, how do you know? Well, they didn't get the work done. Aha. We didn't get the work done. That's what we actually care about. We mask it as billable hours because it's the only thing we've ever known.
Yeah. So I'm going to share with you one of the things that I've used in my conversations and get your opinion as to whether or not you feel this is a valid way to assess this evolution or change within the firm. One of the things that I've done with my clients is we've transitioned from the KPI being the billable hours over to deliverables, as you're explaining, meeting deadlines, but also delighting the customer, wowing the customer, helping the customer take the information we're providing and answer the question of therefore what? How does this apply to their business, and how do they react based on the information they're receiving from us? So the way to do this is to simply go back over the last 6 months, for example, assess what the average billing was for that particular client and go to the client and say, look, rather than fluctuating from here forward, we're just going to do a flat rate. And we're just going to say for the next 6 months, our fee is X. The challenge now becomes, because we've established what the firm is going to be billing for the coming months, the challenge now becomes not how much more time can we spend on this client to increase the billable hours. It's now how can we work more efficiently and be more productive and do it quicker, because we've already established we're going to get paid X amount. The question is, can we do it faster than we've done in the past? And now the challenge with efficiency is, how do we leverage technology? How do we leverage processes and internally become much more efficient so that we're still getting paid the same amount of money, but now the challenge is, can we do it in less time? And now we can focus on the deliverable as you're describing it, to ensure that we're wowing the customer, because when we deliver it, it's done, it's before the deadline. And at the same time, we're able to now give actionable information. Here are some things that they need to understand or see about their business. Here are things that need their attention, and hopefully inform the business owner such that they're able to make more informed business decisions. Now the relationship with the client totally changes, because I'm no longer focused on, well, I can drag my feet and bill a little bit more hours, and wow, isn't it nice? I was able to make more on this client this month. Well, no, I got paid and I just hustled to figure out how I can do it quicker. What would you say to all of that?
You've got two different metrics there that are so important. One is efficiency. And let's be really honest and upfront about efficiency. Clients couldn't care less.
Correct.
That is not a metric the client even cares about. We kid ourselves by thinking that. Oh, our realization went up. Guess who doesn't care? The client. They don't care what your realization is. They don't care what your utilization is. All of our metrics are us focused.
Yes.
We have so few metrics that are client focused. So I love where you're headed with the second part of that, Roger, which is client experience. Are they satisfied? Net promoter score, whatever you want it to be. Give them a Likert scale, 1 through 5. How satisfied are you with with what we did? I don't care how complex or simple you want to make it. Is the client excited to work with you? Right? That's when you know you're being successful. Because when the client is excited, they're wowed, as you said it, right? They're super satisfied. They're wowed. They're a raving fan, is a phrase we use. They're willing to go say, hey, you need to go work with Roger and his firm, right? I don't know who you use right now for accounting, bookkeeping, tax work. They're not the one you should be working with, right? You should be working with Roger. Right now, that client is worth even more to you, right? That's exactly where you want your clients to be. But to do that, we have to focus less on the internally focused metrics, and we've got to focus more on the client-focused metrics. Are they excited? Do they find that what they're paying and what they're getting for what they're paying, is it worth it? There was a conversation I recently had on our podcast with Michelle River, and I love what she said. She goes, the term value has so much baggage associated with it. I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Right? Value pricing, it's got baggage. I'm like, oh, that's a great way to put it. She goes, at the end of the day, does the client think what they're paying and what they're getting, is it worth it? And you want the client, in my mind, going back to what you just shared, you want the client to think, oh, it was worth it and much, much more. Because then they're never going to worry about what they're paying.
What the client actually experiences is that they're able to take the information we're providing and make changes in their own business that they can reflect back and say, I was able to do something different in my company today because of the information I received from the firm, the accounting firm. That's hugely important, because now they're seeing that there's a correlation between they're paying us and using our services and where they're taking the company. They were able to see things, make changes, do things in the benefit of their business as a result of the information we were providing. That's powerful. And that's where they become more dependent on us and reliant upon us, because they see that we're contributing to their success. That's huge. It's not that we're just now recording history, providing it, and they're compliant. It's so much more than that.
It is. And then they want to work with you.
Yeah.
Right? They crave working with you because they know that you're making them better. But that requires us to stop thinking about our services and our outputs and start focusing on the client's experience and the client's outcomes and their goals and their challenges. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, how does a tax return help them do that? Well, the return itself, it doesn't help anybody do much of anything other than not get in trouble with the IRS or the Canadian tax authorities, because we work with some Canadian firms too. The return itself doesn't do that, but the information and the context and what you learn in putting that together should help you and having a conversation with the client about their goals, their challenges, and what they're trying to achieve. The same thing in bookkeeping, right? Yeah, you can record entries and you can do the task that is bookkeeping. But if that's all we think the client cares about, we're missing a huge opportunity, because there are some really great clients that care about a lot more, and they see a ton of value. And then, like you said, you get to that monthly fee or that quarterly fee. It's like, hey, we're going to pay you $15,000 a quarter or $15,000 a month, even for some, right? And
Yep.
it's because we know that working with you provides us more. If it's 15,000 a quarter, we know for a fact that we're going to see way more than 60,000 in value in working with you. It's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in our bottom line or our growth or whatever, because you're the one that helped us achieve that next milestone in the millions in the revenue space.
Yep.
So they don't even think about that anymore,
Yeah.
right? They want you to be the one. And let's go back to the original thing about the business model. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Roger, because I think we overcomplicate our business model. We have, as a profession, one of the simplest models in the world. Our revenues are very predictable. And if somebody's saying, oh no, I do tax returns, it takes a different amount every year. If you really sit down and think about it, you already know what you're going to charge probably 90% of your clients this year, no matter how much time goes into it, because you're going to write it off and say it was your fault anyway. So we have very predictable revenues. And except in a couple states and in certain countries, we have very predictable expenses. We have fixed salaries. It's not like those extra billable hours actually cost us anything from a salary standpoint. Most of our costs are fixed. We have one of the world's simplest business models.
Uh-huh.
Right? So all we have to figure out now is how do we get more revenue using the same resources? Is that fair? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I don't want to oversimplify it, but this is why I would answer your question. We implement what we refer to as the universal business model. And in there, we do what's called mapping the business. And we focus on three essential areas of the company. First of all, it's revenue production. So it's marketing and sales. You have to have some part of your business committed or devoted to actual client acquisition. You always have to be in that mindset. And I do realize a lot of firms get to a point where they say we're too busy, we're working with the clients we want. That may be true, and I'm not trying to suggest that you want to overwhelm yourself by taking on new clients, but I do believe that you need to keep your finger on the ability to turn on and off your marketing and sales. The second is the accounting part of it. The accounting is essential because that's the client service. That's what they're experiencing. That's what they're paying for. And then the last is production. So MAP, it's marketing, sales, accounting, production. And the production is essentially where you address the efficiencies that we're talking about now. How do you internally look at what we're doing in the business to deliver this product? And all of a sudden, what happens is you start to address things related to culture. You're looking at workflows, procedures. You're looking at processes. And those three parts of the business, when you can compartmentalize them into those three areas, the business becomes much more manageable. And to your point, it's a lot easier to do your business because the accounting that you're doing for your clients is the same thing you do for yourself. And so therefore, the one thing that your clients can't do for themselves, the accounting, you do internally. So you're able to actually run a very slick operation when it comes to comparing it to a manufacturing company or some of these other businesses out there that have so many widgets and inventory and variety of things that are so essential to their success. And yet for the accounting business model, it's a lot more simplistic. So I agree with you. It is a thing that we tend to not really focus on, but yet we should be grateful for.
And you keep using a word that I'm hoping that more and more firms will start to use. And I know I talk about it a lot, and I've had some firms that are probably sick of me talking about it because I say it so much. You've got to recognize that your firm is a business.
Yes.
It's and maybe it's that whatever the phenomenon is where you work on other people's businesses all day long. So by the time you're done, you don't want to work on yours. You just want to just keep doing the work. But we've got to recognize it's a business. And if you run it like a business, you can become even more successful. And one of the challenges, going back to our original our original discussion on the 80 hours, is as we increase efficiencies, we've got to be very intentional with where we see those gains. Because some firms will say, oh, we're more efficient. Great. Now with those 80 hours, we can achieve even more. And we miss the point of, okay, why don't we get it to where we're generating the revenue that we want and people have the quality of life that they want, and we find that place. And then we figure out, great, now how do we go up from there?
Yeah.
Rather than we're more efficient and then just do that to go faster rather than be, exactly. Let's be smarter, not faster.
Yeah, so that's great that you figured out how to do it better. Okay, let's do more of that. And you just stick with that same 80-hour work week. Yeah, so there's two things I'd like to mention, and then I want to move into
Yeah.
this area that you're just bringing up. The first thing is yes, there is a mindset about running the business that I think a lot of accounting professionals don't really get into. And so we emphasize a term that honestly, it doesn't exist in Webster's dictionary, but I think it's essential to the success of the firm. And it's to recognize that you are an accountrepreneur. You are an
Mm,
accountant, but you're an entrepreneur. And as an accountrepreneur, you start to embrace the business side of it. You start to realize that the things that you're taking to your clients apply to you as well. And so all of a sudden, you start to implement these business principles in your own company. The second thing, and this is kind of revolutionary, this is one where I usually get an eyebrow to kind of twitch up, and the listeners, I'm sure, are going to take a double take on what I'm about to say. And it's the fact that if you're not doing your own accounting in a timely way, that you're closing out your books within 15 days of month end, if you're not doing that, listen closely. I challenge you, go find an accounting professional, a firm, and pay them to do your books. And I mean it.
mm,
The point is your business needs to have the financials. Just as you're helping your clients run their businesses, providing them the numbers, you need your numbers and you need to treat it as a business. And your accounting firm information, your financials are essential to running your business. So if unfortunately you're not doing your own books on a monthly basis like your clients expect you to do, you should now find an accounting firm to do your own books, pay them. And here's the beauty of the whole thing. Experience what it's like to be on the client end receiving accounting financials. Deadlines. Is that accounting firm meeting them? How do they deliver the financials to you? What are the things they're pointing out about your business that you're not seeing because you're in the thick of the woods? Why? Because you need that perspective. Just as valuable as you're telling your firm, your clients, your firm is to their success, that
mhm.
accounting firm to you is just as valuable. So yeah, I probably got a few people that want to go, what? What did he just say? Did he really just say that? And the answer is yes.
Well, and especially depending on the size and how fast you're growing, the sooner you recognize and learn how to run your firm like a business, even if you're an entrepreneur, and I love that phrase, by the way, and if it's just you, right? One partner, perhaps, and you've got, a handful of employees and you're thinking, oh, I'm not big enough to run it like a firm. I challenge that.
Yeah.
You are, if you have a company, you are big enough to run it like a business. And
Yes.
the sooner you can figure that out, the easier it's going to be to achieve your long-term goals. Because it's that running it like a business that allows you, as you said a while ago, to figure out, okay, when do we want to turn certain aspects of the business on or off? We can grow faster, we can grow slower. But if you don't have a business mindset about your own firm, it's going to be really hard to achieve any of those goals.
Yeah, the mindset shift that I experience with a lot of my clients happens to be them going from a job mentality. At the end of the day, yes, they own a business and they run a company and they started it, but the reality of the situation is they're too much doing a job. And what we want to do is get them to a lifestyle situation where they're now running a business, delegating things out. Other people are actually taking care of the day-to-day operations, and that's a totally different experience. And from a growth perspective, and I do realize that we're dealing with a staffing shortage as it relates to accounting professionals, but the idea of we've grown as large as we'd like, it's your business. You can stop and plateau wherever it is you feel appropriate, especially because of a lifestyle. But I challenge you with the idea of it doesn't have to always be about you. Just because you've gotten to the max of where you're at, why not actually be a contributor to the economy and develop a position by documenting it, duplicating it by hiring somebody else, and then delegating to them the responsibility of those tasks so that you are no longer doing it, but now you're actually helping the economy because you employed a new person, giving them a skill, a talent, a responsibility, and you're further growing your business rather than turning away business. You're actually now finding ways to internally grow so you can meet that demand. This is what we're
Yeah.
talking about here. It's taking and like you're describing, have a business mindset and really seeing that we have something to contribute to the economy. So lots going on here. Because of time, I want to ask one
Yeah,
question here. A lot
please.
of what we were talking about was external, as you were referring to it. A lot of the metrics as to the deliverables. But what I want to talk about is real quickly culture. Internally, there's this mentality of, okay, if you're not working 50, 60, 70 hours, you're not pulling your weight. There's this cultural thing that we've got within the firm of this is how we do business. There has to be a change from the leadership down as to what is now permissible. You've got remote workers now. You've got people that are working towards deliverables rather than working 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are for those 40 hour work weeks. how do you get that culture to shift when the partners are so ingrained in the current business model? How do you tackle that process?
You've got to get the partners to shift. And I love a grassroots effort as much as the next person. I wish change could be driven in this regard from the ground up, from the managers out, however it may look. But realistically, at the end of the day, if the partners aren't on board, it's not going to be successful. And the way that I like to talk about this is it's not about less. So often this conversation focuses on less. How do we work less hours, right? How do we get our hours down? How do we work fewer Saturdays? And it's all less, 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 less. What I want to focus on is how do we find more? How do we find more client satisfaction? How do we find more life satisfaction? How do we find more retention? How do we find more culture? So we've got to start by shifting the mindset that this isn't all about subtraction, that it's all about better alignment. And it's a bit of mincing words, but it really does help partners get on board. What's the business case for it? If you want to get the partners on board, what's the business case for it? You're going to retain more people. You're going to have happier A-level clients. Because if you're really honest about it, you get to hour 73 and your best client calls you and they have a question, you probably haven't talked to them the last few weeks anyway that much, because the best clients aren't the ones that are the loudest most of the time. They're not the ones that you're constantly responding to. You don't even have probably the energy to respond to them. You might be a bit short. And now we're actually hurting our best client relationships because we're exhausted by all the clients that are demanding and keeping us, in emergency crisis mode. So there's a business case for this. We have to get the partners on board first. And again, I want to get to the crux of it. Why do we care so much if somebody worked 80 hours a week? Well, they need to. Why? Why do they need to work? Because we have to get the work done. Great. How else can we measure did they get the work done? Because 80 hours doesn't guarantee they're going to get it done. But if you tell somebody you must work X number of hours a week, they're going to figure out a way to hit that number, even if they didn't need to, right? Work expands, right? Parkinson's law, work expands to fill the time allotted. Right. So we've got to get back to, what do we actually care about? Well, we care if the work gets done. Okay. Do we have too much work? And this is going to be one of the challenging things. Not all work has to be done before April 15th if you're a tax firm. There's a firm that I heard a managing partner, we were talking about this. He goes, I'm just going to call it the date of reconciliation. I'm not calling it tax day anymore. Technically, nothing's due until August. September or October. It was October is what I meant to say there. And he's like, none of it's technically due until then. Would I like to have more of it out by the 15th of April? Sure. I don't have to. Right? On the business, I don't have to have it done by March 15th. I have to be able to reconcile it and see if there's an estimate that needs to be paid in, and we have to get an extension filed. But we don't have to have everything happen in this really compressed window. So the other side of it is we need to step back and take a really objective look. Are we doing the right work at the right time? What truly needs to be done in the first 3 or 4 months of the year? Okay, what after that needs to be done earlier in the summer rather than towards the fall? And we need to be really intentional with that. And that's where I go back to more. If we have more intentionality with scheduling, we're going to have a better lifestyle within the firm. We're going to have a better culture because we're not trying to create these artificial deadlines. I realize April 15th is tax day for individuals, but it doesn't have to be done. We want it to be done. There's a big difference there. And there are a lot of firms right now that, they're like, yeah, we're going to have to do a few extensions. We tried really hard not to. And it almost, you can see it. It like pains them that they had to do those extensions. Where I see, the firms that are making the best progress, they're saying, yeah, we extended 70% this year. We're really pleased with that. We're going to try for 80% next year. Or I've got some firms that they automatically, on the business side of it, they automatically extend every single return. And then they prioritize what needs to get done when. And that's part of the conversation shift that I see has to happen here, Roger, is let's stop talking about how do we do less. We want more success. We want more quality of life. We want more clients that are happy. We want more profitability. Let's not sugarcoat it. We want to be more profitable. And so how do we do all of that? We've got to retain our people. We've got to make our best clients the happiest clients. We probably need to get rid of a few clients that we shouldn't be serving anyway. That's a whole nother conversation that could go on for a long time. but it's all about how do we become more intentional with running the business.
Yeah. One thing I'd add to this is the fact that I think for the owners of firms, as much effort as we put on client retention and client satisfaction and being profitable, I would dare say one of the things we need to do is now start looking at the accounting firm employees, the
Oh my
staff we
gosh,
have on
yes.
hand, as they are also as much a client of the firm as the paying client. And what I mean by that is there are now basically a staffing issue. So we've got to respect the fact that we want to hold on to these quality individuals that are within the firm and build a culture where they're valued, appreciated, and retained. And if that's the possibility, then we're going to now have to not have to deal with the turnover that then disrupts our ability to service our clients. And so it's one of the things that I struggle with. It's one of the challenges that I think a lot of people are experiencing now that the environment with remote workers is becoming so much more prevalent, people working from their homes and such. It changes the dynamic of employee relations and interactions, company loyalty. And there's a lot of issues that we need to address. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to get into a lot of this, but I think it is something that we need as leaders to realize needs our attention. And the amount of time that we're putting on client relations, we also need to look at employee relations, because that flexibility, that turnover that could exist within the firm could actually destroy the business model. And that's one of the things that I think we need to give some attention to. So, Jeremy, this has
Yeah.
been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of summarize our talking points, and then I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But before I go any further for our listeners, one of the things that I'd like to point out is Jeremy has put together some things here that I'd like you to check out. You can go to Upstream Academy. It happens to be where they have good deal of information, as well as our episode description. In the episode description, he's provided some information regarding some programs that they have, as well as an event that they do for firm owners that I'd like you to check out. Go there and find out more information in the episode description of what's available with Jeremy and how it is he works with firm owners and partners as to helping them work on their business. Related to this, in the episode description, I'd like you to check out a book called Your Strategic Accountant. This is a book written to accounting professionals to help us recognize what is it our clients expect of us as we're servicing them, and what are the things that they're needing from us as an accounting profession. What are they paying for? If we could do a better job as a profession meeting these business needs, I think we're going to improve client relations, client retention, and obviously get paid better for the services we're providing because they're much more satisfied with the work that we're performing. So go check out the book, Your Strategic Accountant, there in the episode description. Now, as a summary of our conversation, I love the fact that Jeremy comes with a little bit of an entrepreneurial background. I think that's great. Knowing that from the age of 6, he was, or 6th grade, I think it was, he was actually interested in becoming an accounting professional. That's beautiful. Seeing family members, kind of lead the way and show that there's opportunities here in the profession is great. Seeing that he had a family member that was actually a witness that would attest to various things, that's kind of fun, getting on the witness stand and actually attesting to what's happening within things. And then he got into audit and the fraud side of things. I think fraud is quite fascinating. I think we're all sensitive to that. Sometimes we have in our careers experience with it. And as businesses, it's always something that is the worry. What is it that someone is taking advantage of? What's that loophole? Where have I given too much trust? And where is it now being taken advantage of? And so I think those stories are always very, very interesting. But the thing that really appealed to me is our conversation today about firms, that there is an evolution that's changing, and that the KPI of how many hours worked needs to change, and how we as firms need to actually then focus on new KPIs, things that are more relevant to the deliverable that the client is receiving and the deadlines upon which we're delivering those. Those are two good things for us to pay attention to. And really with our firm, within our firm, focus on the staff meeting those objectives. Are we actually delivering something to wow the client? And more importantly, do it in a timely manner that it's then useful for our clients to then have as information in running their business. So great insights there. And then this last conversation where we were talking about culture, just recognizing that internally as leaders, we need to be sensitive to the demands that we're putting on our staff, things that they're actually experiencing, and provide them a means to quality of life and see them as perhaps a client of ours as much as our paying customers are. So all those things were some great insights, great takeaways from today's conversation. Jeremy, what would you like to leave as a final thought and add to this?
I will go with a final thought of this. There are 4 areas that when we work with firms to take them from great to even greater, and those are culture, people, clients, and growth. And those 4 areas have a sequence to them. So if you're a leader listening to this in your firm, what I would encourage you is this. First, take care of your culture. If you can create an amazing culture, you're going to be able to land and retain amazing employees, develop them effectively, and they're going to take care of your clients. And those raving fans that they create are going to lead to growth. Again, kind of going back to what we were just talking about, Roger, if we have a great culture, we're going to get and keep great employees. They'll take care of our clients for us. We can't take care of clients without the people. So we want to focus on the people, then the clients, and take care of all of that. Growth is sure to follow, especially if we are being intentional. So that's what I will leave everyone with. And thanks for having me on the show.
Jeremy, it's been a pleasure. Great having you. So for everyone listening, here's what I'd like you to do. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so. Each and every week, we come out with new episodes, interviewing the experts, getting insights as to what it is we can be doing to build the premier accounting firm in our area, offer quality accounting services, and get paid what we're worth. So with that in mind, you can also go to universalaccounting.com and there find podcast playlist, basically collections of various things that you might be of interest based on where your business is today. These are things you can go binge listen to, topics from the experts related to marketing, selling, onboarding clients, tech stacks, staff training, mental health, just a variety of playlists that we've put together, kind of the best of the best as it relates to those various topics that you can go listen to. Again, that's at universalaccounting.com in the podcast section. The other thing I'd like to do is also invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference. It's for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. GrowCon happens to be where we put on the stage experts, individuals that have insights for us as to how we can best run our businesses, and at the same time gives you an opportunity to meet with your peers, individuals like you who are out running businesses, successful accounting firms, and collaborate with them. Basically find ways in which you can better service your clients, grow your firms in various areas, and then lastly, meet the staff here at Universal Accounting Center, those individuals that are committed for you to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. The other thing I'd like to point out is if you would like more information about these principles and other things that we've been discussing, feel free to go to universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day out there.